Welcome to our webinar on how to wow with word cloud polling for our January session of the Meetoo webinars. I'm Dermot from the customer success team, and here with me today is Ben War, our content manager.
Hi everyone.
So as I was saying, we're going to be using Meetoo throughout the webinar for Q&A. Hopefully you guys will send us some questions in, but also for some polling. As you can imagine, we're going to be doing some word cloud polling throughout this session. So if you go to web.meetoo.com on any browser device and then enter the meeting ID, which is 196315084. If you're watching the webinar on a laptop or another computer, probably best to use a separate device to access the app so that you can watch and participate at the same time. So yes, please do get onto there. Now, what I want to just make sure is that we do get everybody onto the app today. We're actually running this session in anonymous mode. So previously we've run with the profiles on, so people put their names in. But what we want to see is if we can get you guys to ask some more questions and potentially give us some more honest feedback throughout the session by running it in anonymous mode. So the instructions again, web.meetoo.com, ID is 196315084. Okay, as with all of our webinars, we've got a pretty short and sharp agenda for the session. So we're going to kick off with 5 reasons why word cloud polling is so popular. We're then going to look at some effective ways to use word clouds, and we've got some practical examples that we're going to share with you, and that's going to take up the lion's share of the session today. So we'll go through a few of those, and then at the end we've got some of our top tips for you going away and using word cloud polling yourself after this. We then, as we always do, have some time for Q&A at the end, which is again why I'm labouring the point to get you to access the app so that you can participate in that, and we really want your questions and your comments. And for those that have used word clouds before, we want your ideas and your tips as well, and please share all those experiences with the other people that are actually on the session. So with that in mind, please again, web.meetoo.com, and the ID is there in the bottom corner of all the slides. So our first poll of the day isn't actually a word cloud poll, but what I want to do is I want to try and find out how many times you have all used word cloud polling in your own session. So have you used it several times? Have you used it just once or twice? Have you tested it but never used it in a real session? Or you've never actually tried it at all? So I'm just going to give people a few seconds to get onto that. This is part of our intro and our warm-up and our best practice to have a bit of a warm-up question. For those of you that aren't on the app already, please see those instructions down in the bottom corner. It's really important for you to get on there. So, okay, we've got a few people in. We're not going to take too long on this, and we'll see where we get to. Wow, almost half of you not tried it before. Yeah, that's great from our perspective for this session. Hopefully have lots of really useful tips for you. But still a good portion have used it several times. So for those people, hopefully we're pretty confident we'll have some new stuff for you and some new ideas and certainly some tips. But also it'd be great if you can share your tips, best practices, and any ideas around it as well. So those of you that are a bit more experienced in it. Okay, well, thanks very much for that. And it's great to use the technology and make sure that everybody's comfortable with it so far.
Great, thanks, Dermot. So we're going to move into the next section now, where we're going to talk about why word clouds are so popular. But before we do, we want to run an example of a word cloud poll before diving straight into our content. So we're going to get you to respond to this word cloud poll, which is what springs to mind when you think of word clouds. So with this word cloud poll, just feel free to enter multiple one words or even just the one word. And when you're ready, please press the send button in Meetoo. We'll just give you a bit of time now to submit your answers. And if you're not logged on, the details are down there at the bottom, web.meetoo.com, and the ID is 196315084. It'll be great to see what you think of when you think about word clouds. What are the main things that you think about in regards to polling as well?
Yes, great. And so just as Ben said, in terms of directing people to do a word cloud, it's really good to either tell them to enter, one word, or they can enter multiple words, but that really those words should be, independent of each other, because what a word cloud will do is it will pull apart all the context, and you will just see the frequency of those various words that people have submitted. So it's always a good idea to make sure that you test this out at the very beginning, to make sure everybody knows what they're doing, and they can get it all. So we can see that we've got a few responses coming in here. A few people taking a bit of time, but I think what we'll do is we shall take that there. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few people have voted now, so I think we should take that.
I'm interested to see what these are.
Oh, okay. Keywords, yeah, that's the main one. Content and creative. Creative, that's one of my favourites as well, coming up with lots of different ideas. But yeah, a lot of good ones there, and a few that we will explore now, actually. So that's great, though. Yeah, lots of good stuff there.
As somebody said, mess there, which is potentially quite appropriate in some cases, but hopefully it's an insightful mess, or at least a valuable one. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for sending those responses in. That's brilliant.
So now we're going to go on to the main reasons why word clouds are popular. And we think there are 5 unique points that make them so popular. First of all, word clouds can be used to reveal sentiment and an opinion of an audience. This is valuable for a presenter, as they clearly get an understanding of what the audience is thinking. The presenter can also gain an insight into the most popular words, as word cloud polls highlights the most frequently submitted responses through the size of the text. Next is instant analysis. Word clouds can be used to show an instant visualization of word data and feedback. The instant gratification of seeing this data live in the moment makes it popular with speakers and also audiences alike.
Absolutely, and they're also crowd pleasing. So, word clouds can be used to engage an audience and to spark a bit of excitement and discussion. They involve participation from absolutely everybody, and they're a great collaborative tool, and they can be used and added to by people, whether they're in a room all together or even remotely, and they can all share the same experience there. We've seen and used word clouds particularly effectively to spark those discussions and grab people's attention immediately and get that focus. And even though word clouds, they aren't necessarily a new thing, they've been around for a long time, but the first time people actually experience collaborating and building their own one as part of a word cloud poll, you really get quite a nice bit of feedback and a nice vibe from your participants with that. They can also be utilised as visual aids, often used to help people, retain knowledge and to make sure that they, remember some key words from your presentation. They can also be used as summary slides at the end of a session, and actually we've had feedback and found that they've been found to really help students when being used as a revision tool as well. They're also quite flexible, and they can be adapted to a number of different scenarios, as we're going to be exploring as we go through this session. Just one of the key things to remember is to phrase your question in a certain way to make sure you're directing people to build a useful word cloud. And so, hopefully some of the examples that we're going to go through will help you go away and start using word clouds after this session.
We're going to discuss the effective ways to use word cloud polls. So as Dermot said there, flexibility is one of the key points of why people like word cloud polls, and it can be used in various different use cases. So we're going to discuss some of those examples now. So one of the most effective ways actually that we find word clouds being used is actually for icebreakers. We have an icebreaker poll example that we're going to ask you now. Which is, what is your favorite holiday destination? So if you could please enter your favorite holiday destination, or even send in your top 3. Just remember to put a space between each word when sending multiple responses. Yeah, I'm really interested to see this one. Very interested to see where people go on holiday and what places I should book up for the summer. And just while you're responding to that part, I'm going to talk a bit how word clouds are great for icebreakers like this. So using word clouds to break the ice before you get stuck into your presentation content is key to setting the scene and putting your audience at ease. It also allows you to test your word cloud in a more relaxed environment and makes your audience more familiar with the app before running any other polls in your session, be that multiple choice or star rating. This way, there are no surprises and you've instantly started your presentation on the right foot. There are also plenty of other brilliant icebreaker questions that you can ask your audience, but our advice is to keep it simple. Now, I should say that Dermot, he's not a big fan of this type of icebreaker, as he likes to ask more serious or relevant questions to introduce the app. However, I like to have a bit more fun and play around with things and to have a bit more exciting warm-up questions. Using word clouds in this way is great for sparking different types of reactions, and such as a friendly debate or even a competitive response from your audience. We also see many of our customers using icebreaker questions for demographic type answers, where they can get participants to send in where they've traveled from, even in a virtual session, to find out which country they're attending from. So I'm just looking here, we've got quite a few different locations that come from the word cloud. So I think we should close the word cloud there.
We'll freeze it there.
Yeah. So Spain, yeah, that's a great one. I've actually got Spain booked up, so good to see that one there. But Rio, Caribbean, yeah, Maldives. There's a few locations that I'd definitely like to go to there. I don't know about you, Dermot, but
you can use this as your list to tick off, Ben. During this holiday. Yeah,
definitely. So now I'm going to pass over to Dermot, actually, who's going to talk about another way to use word cloud polls effectively, which is topic selection.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ben. So, looking at topic selection, you can see that we've opened a word cloud question here again. And with topic selection, it means you can really narrow down your discussions to a particular key point or theme. So please, as we're going through this, send in what you think the next webinar that we're going to run should be about in terms of features of the app or platform. This is helpful for a number of ways. But using this particular type of word cloud, it's a great method for ensuring that your session is as relevant as possible for your participants. Now, obviously, that's not always going to be the way that you're going to run a meeting or a class, because you might have a particular route that you want to go down. But where it is possible, we really see great engagement scores from sessions like that, and you also get really positive feedback results. Now, clearly, you're going to need to define some boundaries to actually ensure that those suggestions that are coming in aren't completely wild and off track, which is why we narrowed it down to features of the app that we'd like you to see. So hopefully we're going to start to see some of the frequency come into play. We actually use this method during our own company town halls to make sure that the areas that people have particular interest in or concerns about regarding the business actually get covered in what is often a relatively short session. So we've got some good stuff coming in here already. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to freeze this poll here, because I think we've got most people have actually sent something in. And I think we can safely say we need to look at scoring, surveys and display next, Ben. So we know what we need to get out there. We'll have to start coming up with the content for that right away afterwards. So thanks very much for that there. Okay, the next section that we're going to look at is actually feedback. So again, I've got a word cloud open here, but the word cloud polls can be used really well by presenters or lecturers to get a live snapshot of feedback of how their participants are feeling in just a couple of seconds. Now, by using the word clouds in the scenario that we're using it here today, we've got the anonymity turned on. So this hopefully means that we're going to get some really honest and uninhibited feedback from you guys. It may be something that you don't want to show live immediately. You might just want to take it away, but use it as a great snapshot for a report and a debrief potentially afterwards. We've built in a profanity filter into the system, so hopefully we don't have any naughty words coming through, but you've also got a manual filter if you need to as well. But we really find that getting that live feedback, this is great. It's all very positive. If it was more constructive, then we'd be looking for ways to ask you to put those constructive feedbacks actually into the Q&A to really help us improve it. And if we were feeling really dynamic and confident, we'd be able to take the session in a direction to improve it actually on the fly. Okay, so I'm going to close that one off now. And as I've already said, it's great to see all that brilliant feedback, but please do, if there is constructive feedback, you can give us, put it into the Q&A board or fill in the survey afterwards, and we can address those points afterwards.
So we're going to talk about one other way, and this is the last ways we're going to talk about of how to use word cloud polls. And actually, it's one of my favorite ways of using word cloud polls. I use it in my day-to-day work as well. And that's actually for crowdsourcing ideas and suggestions from a group. So to start with, I'm going to ask you all to respond to another word cloud poll. We're going to deploy a chatbot to our website and dashboards to help our customers get the answers they need quickly. We want your help to come up with suggestions to name our chatbot. So be as creative as you like, and let us know what you think the chatbot should be called in this poll. I'm very interested to see what names come out of this one. And just while you submit your names there as you're doing, I'm going to discuss a few reasons why word clouds are great for crowdsourcing. So there are many different approaches and tools to crowdsourcing and brainstorming ideas in groups, and mind maps being one approach, and we've all used a mind map before, just trying to come up with ideas and come up with a visual aid. But the practicality of some of these approaches within a live setting can be very challenging. This is when the instant display of a word cloud poll is hugely valuable as you get the useful data, and you can see the most popular ideas through the size of the word. Traditional option-based polls do not help here, as you are limiting the scope of responses that can be sent in. As with our example here, you may not end up with quite as much word frequency as you would hope with other word cloud polls you would come up with, but you still get a nice instant visual representation of the results that you can share across to your audience, and so you can have it in front of you as well to discuss. So just looking at some of the responses there, we've got quite a few come in.
Some very helpful ones, Ben.
Yeah.
You're up there quite high. Hilda's up there quite high. Unfortunately, I'm there. There's no chance it's going to be Dermot, so that's okay.
Interesting to see there's a few robot base names. I can see them moving around. Helpbot,
yeah,
and you're there, Dermot, as well.
Yeah,
should be pleased with that one.
That's great. Let's just close it there so we can actually get a bit of a still one so we can see some of those. We're definitely going to take this away. This is a real genuine case for us. We'll take this away and mull them around, and we might even do this activity again on another webinar to really help us narrow down those ideas, and perhaps even when we've got our shortlist, we'll go out to you guys and see what we think it should actually be. So thanks very much for that. A good example, Ben. That's great. Okay, so we're just doing a bit of switching around here so we can get back to our presentation. And we're actually onto our last section now. So it's the tips. And we've come up with our 5 top tips. So Ben and I sat down and came up with these. We've got some more, and we're more than happy to share all of our tips with you guys. If you want to give us a shout, or I'm sure Ben will put some content together, a blog or something with maybe even a few more tips after this. But to go through our top ones, the first one is boundaries. So we've mentioned it a little bit already, but don't ask too open a question, as you're going to end up with lots of words that are all the same size. We saw a little bit of that in the last example. Word clouds, as you've seen, give probably the best and most informative results when the word frequency really comes into play. Then instructions. So, I think we probably laboured the point a little bit during some of our word clouds today, but give people direct instructions on what you want them to do. So, often saying in one word, or, in 3 words, describe X, Y, Z. Really set your audience's expectations so that they know what they need to do. Give them good direction there. Multiple word answers or where people might put in a sentence are probably better used with different question types. We'll look at timing. So you want to give your audience and your participants warning that you're going to be running a word cloud, but then also with timing, you want to give them enough time to actually put the responses in. So unlike a choice type question, people need to be a bit more creative when it comes to a word cloud question, because they have to think about what they want to put in. They need to type it actually into the smart device, and there's varying speeds of typing depending on who your participants are, and then they need to send it in. So yeah, think about giving people enough time, which is why we were actually delivering a lot of the content whilst the word cloud was going, to actually give some time, and there was no pregnant pauses there. So think about how you're going to deliver those questions. We'll look at control. It can mean a few things, but what I mean here is you don't need to worry about control. So, we've already discussed things like filters. So there's an automatic profundity filter built in there, but actually what you're able to do is you're able to, in the control side of our word cloud question in particular, you can apply some manual filtering as well if you want to. So that depends whether you're going to be showing it dynamically building or not, and you can filter it there, or whether it's going to do a bit of filtering and then show the results at the end. So just bear in mind what level of control is going to make you feel comfortable to be running your word cloud questions. Some people don't want the surprise of it all appearing at the end. We then look at display. So if you're going to be showing your word cloud to your participants, make sure that your display device or channel is appropriate. So, if you're all in a big room, make sure that your screen is potentially big enough and clear enough to make sure that people are going to be able to read the words. Again, just to talk about making a decision if you're going to show the results live, whether that's going to be in a real-time environment, so everything, the word clouds are building as people send stuff in, or whether you want to wait till the end to show it. That's worth considering, or whether you don't want to show it at all, and it's just for your takeaway afterwards. And then there's things like the colours that you might want to use. That's also a consideration when it comes to display. So that's what we think are our main top tips. And so just as we're getting towards the end of the session now, we'd like to ask another live poll. So obviously with what we've discussed today, it's been quite fast paced. We've gone through quite a bit of stuff, but what we want to now find out is what your appetite is for going forward and potentially using word cloud polls in your own sessions. So will you definitely use them, and by this time next week all of your participants will be sick of word clouds? Are you think you probably are likely to use them, you're unlikely to use them, or you're definitely not going to use a word cloud poll in your sessions going forward? That might be because you just don't like them, or perhaps you just don't think they're actually appropriate for the type of sessions that you run. Well, everybody's very quick with the choice questions, so we can close that one off straight away. Wow, okay, very, very positive. Wasn't quite expecting it to be that definitive, but it's great to see that everybody is likely or better to be using them, and to see so many people that are definitely going to be using them is really good. And please, let us know what works well, what doesn't work well. Keep giving us feedback. We are desperate to make our word cloud polls brilliant and delightful, and for both you and your participants as well. So let us know how we can make them even better. Okay, I think we're about up to the point for Q&A. So hopefully we've got a few questions coming in. I know Ben's been having a look down the board, so let's try and get through a few of them. If you can like other people's questions to help us see ones that are potentially more popular, that would also be great as well.
Yeah, so we've got quite a few here, Dermot, so I'm just going to go straight from the top. So after the word cloud poll was closed, can you change the order of the way the results display and move them around?
The short answer is no, but you can rebuild the word cloud. So if you've got quite a bit of white space, obviously it's automatically generated. If you would like to see a slightly different shape, you can use the system to rebuild that word cloud to then use afterwards on the report. So in the moment, no. But you can rebuild it. You might decide to refresh it live if you want to, but we don't see people doing that too often. They tend to just refresh it for their reporting purposes afterwards.
Okay, another question here that's got a couple of likes actually. Do the size of words depend on the frequency, or is it random?
No, absolutely. The size of the words is dictated by the frequency of that word in the responses. So that's the whole premise of a word cloud, is that the frequency of each word shows bigger, and therefore is the most popular one.
This one's just come in actually, and it's already getting a couple of likes. Can you link two words with underscore? You can. I would actually need to go away and check if our word cloud display what it does with an underscore. So I will absolutely make that as a point to get back to people on. It may be that underscores are removed as part of it. What we would generally say to people is to try and avoid asking questions where people need to link more words, because I think then you're unlikely to get a good frequency represented, because people potentially won't link words in the same way, or there might be slight differences. That's why we always suggest going for one word, or asking people for independent words just with the space in between each one. Hopefully that makes sense. We're actually getting quite a few questions come in now, so we're trying to answer all the questions as they come in. This one's actually got 4 likes, so I'll answer this one. Where are instructions to set this up if you're new to Work Clouds?
Where are instructions to set this up? So we've got some great help guides. We've got some great help video tutorials on using our word clouds. So you can get those from our YouTube channel. What we'll do is we'll post a link to the YouTube channel into the Q&A feed at the end of this session, so that you can go directly there. And you can always go to help.meetoo.com. Where we've got other user guides that will be helpful for actually doing that. Hopefully that's it. When it says instructions to set this up, it is word clouds rather than just Meetoo itself. If you want to set up Meetoo, just go to meetoo.com and you can sign up for your account there.
I've got another question here that we spoke about earlier in the presentation, which is, do we have to set our own profanity filter, or is that an option already within the Meetoo app?
Great question. So we've deployed the profanity filter to it. We had quite a lot of fun in the office testing it, and so we we'll update that at various periods. It's not something that you can add to yourself, although that's something we'll take away as a potential development conversation. But as I mentioned, you can actually apply the manual filtering as your words are coming in. So when you actually get around to running these polls yourself, you'll see in the control that you can actually just click on words that are coming in, and that will actually then remove them. So if you see somebody's managed to get a naughty one in, then you can remove that yourself.
Great, that's actually answered someone else's question there that said, can you filter other unpleasant words that aren't covered from the profanity filter, which is what you just answered. So that's great. I'll try and get through another couple as well. I've got one here. Can we incline the words 45 degrees? So try, I think, something around the customization of the word cloud.
Yeah,
well.
It's a good point. No, that's not currently available. We go on the the 90 degrees. It's something we'll take away and talk about in development. I'd be keen to, by way of likes, I can see that one's got 3 likes. So yeah, by way of likes, if that's something that's really important to people, then it's certainly something we would look at. But yeah, that's all I can say. It's not possible at the moment, but it's something we're more than happy to actually discuss.
We've got another couple here, but I just want to ask one question myself for you to answer. And because we had so many people saying they hadn't used it before, what's the number 1 tip that you would give people that want to try Word Cloud for the first time? What's the most important thing they need to do or action?
I guess it's probably just, I mean, we obviously had our top tips, and I think boundaries or the phrasing of the question, I think, is really important. You can end up not getting a great word cloud if you don't develop your question well. So I'd always say to think about your question and then test it on somebody. It's probably the best way to do it. And I think then once you've done it a few times, you'll then get used to how you need to phrase a word cloud question in order to get good results. Really, I think that probably answers it.
No, that's mine as well. So there's a couple of questions here that we haven't answered, but I'll scroll back to the top in a moment. What about the character limit for responses? Is there a limit?
Yes, so there's the 150 character limit in the question type. So yeah, that's it there. People can put in a really, really, really long word if they want, or multiple words as long as they don't go past that character limit. 150.
There's a couple of questions around PowerPoint. How do I get the cloud in the middle of the PowerPoint?
So the cloud will build into the center of the slide. I think just center horizontal and just below center vertically to make sure you can have a title in there. We put it there. So it's something you can move around afterwards, because actually when you run it in PowerPoint, which was the first word cloud poll that we did was in PowerPoint, that you can then move it around afterwards. That then just becomes a PNG graphic that sits on your slide that you can do whatever you want with afterwards. So I think probably a bit of advice there would be to make sure that your slide template is fairly clear when you're using a word cloud question, because obviously if you have a lot of words, you're going to start taking up more space. So a particularly complicated template, a bit like the slide we're looking at the moment, wouldn't work very well for a word cloud. So yeah, try to do something with a bit of space. And again, it just comes down to giving it a quick test. If you've got a complicated one, run one yourself with some colleagues to see if it's going to work okay.
I'm just going back to one question before, then we'll go into the PowerPoint one. I notice I have to press clear every time there's a different question. Can that be changed? So I believe that's someone saying with multiple choice and there's the clear button.
Sorry.
So I notice I have to press clear every time there's a different question. Can that be changed?
Okay, well that will mean that you didn't actually send the responses to your previous question. So when the clear button is still available, that means that the poll is still live. So you may have cleared out your responses there. So it also, if we close the poll, those responses shouldn't still be there. So I worry that you were maybe clearing your results before they were actually taken. I'd quite like to explore that one a bit more. So if you could email us at hello@meetoo.com and just let us know that that's what you're doing. I'd just like to make sure that I'm answering that question properly.
I think we'll take one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Because we're going over a bit here. We've answered a couple of questions. You can use word cloud in PowerPoint like we did at the beginning of the session, but I think someone's leading to the point of dynamic within PowerPoint. So saying, can you use PowerPoint slides live? I think that's what they mean by that comment. But if it's not, feel free to correct me by saying it in the Q&A. But
I'll take it as in the section of 4 or 5 word clouds that we did where they were building in real time. That was done via the presentation view, which is the web-based dashboard. So in the PowerPoint, no, you can't get them to update dynamically. The PowerPoint word clouds will build once you close the poll. So that's the way that functionality works in PowerPoint. So if you want that real-time type of word cloud building, then you just need to use the presentation view in the way we did. That's it.
Brilliant. I don't think there's any more questions coming in, so I think we should wrap that up there. But if there's any more questions on word cloud polls or anything to do with the product, we'll be more than happy to answer them. So feel free to email us on hello@meetoo.com or any other ways on the website.
Yep, absolutely. And then just before we go, I'd just like to draw your attention to the survey that I'm about to make live in the app. We really, really appreciate it. It's a very short feedback survey, but we really value all of your feedback. So, anything that comes in via the Q&A board, that's really helpful. But we want to make these webinars as useful as possible for you to make sure that people want to keep returning to them when we run them. So please just take just a couple of moments. It won't take more than a minute to fill that survey in. Okay, well, I think that is about all for us for today. I think, Ben, thank you very much for joining today, and thank you all very much for attending the session. We hope it was useful, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheerio.